Alright, so today we're going to be doing a little bit of an unusual build guide here in Fortnite. These are some tactics that not everybody uses, but can save your life in the right situation. I'm not going to do stuff like little one-by-ones, because everybody knows how to spin in a circle and build a box. Rather, it's almost going to be like Triangle Piece, the in-depth episode, because this little piece is often neglected, but I think it's one of the very, very best in the game, mostly because it can be edited into so many unusual shapes. For example, I can make my own little box here, almost went off, out of triangle pieces. If you raise them forward into what you would consider an arrow, and you stand at the bottom of the arrow, it builds a nice little divot around you. And while this may not look particularly useful at the onset, you can then build some walls around and make yourself a very nice little box. The advantage of which is you can shoot out of it at any angle, and it's very, very well protected. Downside, though, is if somebody throws a grenade in, it's going to go right to the middle of the box and hit all of your pieces. You can also do this in a 1x1. I'm going to go over here to this 1x1, and I'll go ahead and show you. So you can do the same thing. Put that down. And there we go. So you would build these primarily when you need to peek left and peek right. If you were to do it the other way, which we'll simulate with this, you can't do it quite as though you can peek this side pretty well, but then you're vulnerable there, and you can't quite come up over here without being vulnerable on the back side. But like this, you can kind of choose which side to lift up on. Similar downside, though. If somebody throws a grenade in, it rolls to a central point and does a lot of damage to your structure. The triangle piece is also uniquely useful on console, where you're swapping back and forth, because you can save this as a preset, so that every time you put the piece down, it's essentially a ramp. It looks a little different, but it functions with the exact same height, width, and health of a normal ramp. For instance, you can see the two side by side. They are identical here, except of course for the fact that one is directional vertical and one's directional horizontal. That's just more of a visual sort of thing. What makes this useful is that if you want to do something more unusual with your console keybinds, you can only use the triangle piece for your ramps, and you can use your ramp piece for something much more creative. For instance, not a lot of people do this, it's not exactly a secret these days, but you can edit your ramp into these kind of stairs, which can sometimes be more useful for climbing mountains and sometimes be more useful for unusual buildings and bases. You can put them like this. You can do some kind of unique things with this. And it kind of gives you the option to use one set of ramps for this, and then an entirely different set of ramps for a different sort of climb if that's what you want to do with it. Not useful all the time, not something that people are going to do all the time. It's unusual and non-standard for a reason. It's obviously much faster to just spam ramps like this. Like, that's just way easier to do. But every now and then you may want to do something a little more unusual, or you may want to experiment, and that's perfectly fine to use triangle pieces for. Finally, my personal favorite thing to do with the triangle pieces is a tactic that I'm going to consider just more of an annoyance than anything else. It just throws people off. And that's that if you raise two of these side pieces like this, kind of cat-a-corner of each other, you make these really strange spider-like ramps that are odd and annoying. And you can kind of spam them everywhere. You can run down here, and as you run forward, you can leave this whole trail behind you. And what this does is it allows you to run straight forward away from enemies, and at the same time make yourself very difficult to shoot. It's hard to shoot through all of that. You can also spam these really, really hard and build a sort of crazy structure here just if you have to confuse somebody. The difficult thing with these is that you can't control them very well. They're not easy for you to deal with or for you to build around, but they can throw off your enemy just long enough for you to recover and perhaps do something more tactical. And of course, there's nothing wrong with regular triangle pieces as well. If you're in a little 1x1, like any of these that we've made over here, and you're worried about getting shot from up top, of course you can put a roof, but you can also put a triangle cap on there to make it doubly hard to get into, and it's super quick to edit your way out of both of them. The other thing you can do is that if you have to, you can use these triangle pieces instead of floor pieces to build yourself a running path. The difference being that if you have to stop, you can use them as cover and turn around immediately, or just make it a little bit more annoying for your enemies because they can't really build a whole lot. I'm trying to build ramps at the moment and I can't do that. They can't really build past you, up around you, or over you. Alright, now that I've shown you a bunch of semi-random stuff, let me show you how this works in combat, starting with one of my favorite and annoying strategies, the triangle piece cat-a-corner spider death trail. Alright, so while this tactic is definitely non-standard for a reason, it can actually help you. Now we're going to simulate a situation where Bipolar Bear and What Pants are in duos. I'm alone, I'm panicking, and they're going to come and try and kill me. Now the standard way you would escape is you would run and just do that, and then you'd run and just do that, and you'd run, and you just kind of spam these walls behind you as fast as you can. And while, yeah, don't get me wrong, that strategy works, the alternative strategy of building the weird spider holes can work better because you don't have to stop to turn around to build. The trick, however, is you can't build yourself into them or you die, which is why this is non-standard. And whenever they fire one shot, I'm going to completely panic and run away, and I'm going to see how far I can make it before they kill me with no shield. So let me know when you guys are ready. Go ahead and do your thing. Oh, I'm already building myself in. Well, that's not good. I'm actually following my little path here. So for you guys, since you're here with me, is this more or less annoying than following just the guy who's running and spamming walls?
A little more.
I'd be so mad.
Like, it's not perfect because these don't hit it like normal angles, so it's kind of easy for you to build yourself in and get dead. Oh god. But the point of them is that they are incredibly annoying for whoever's chasing you. And whoever's chasing you probably also won't be able to build above, around them, or anything whatsoever. Are you guys bad, or am I actually doing this right?
No, you're doing it right. There.
So,
no
I made it so you guys were actually trying to kill me, right? You weren't just BSing for a
Yeah, I was trying to.
One thing that I initially thought was going to be a good idea, but kind of turned into a terrible idea, is that you can place these things in a little way where they build you kind of like a little... Oh, fuck. See, they don't always do it consistently. But you can, in theory, use these guys to build yourself a little bitty one-by-one base, but they're so inconsistent. And the fact is, you've only got one piece of wood protecting you instead of two. They're very, very easy to shoot down. I wouldn't recommend building these little hovel-type bases. They'll get you killed. So since there's no downs in playground mode, David here is just going to take a knee and pretend that he's been downed. Black Knights tend not to go down, but for now he's down and out. And in this situation, with you got two people nearby wanting to kill him, if you're really dumb, you'll just sit here and chance the revive. Most people, what they're going to do is they're going to put up like 2 quick walls and like, okay, we're going to do it. But of course, Bipolar Bear and What Pants can shoot through these walls really quick, if you guys don't know. Yeah, that takes like no time whatsoever. A more experienced player would put down 2 walls and a ramp. And that works pretty well. Slows them down a little bit, but there's a problem with those ramps. David, if you want to take one more step forward, please. And Bipolar Bear, if you want to come over here on the right.
Sure.
So if I put down 2 walls like this and a ramp, because of the positioning of the ramp, David is not actually protected from What Pants or from Bipolar Bear if they break past these first walls. And even if he were on top of the walls, yep, even if he were on top, David, I'm going to go ahead and put this little ramp in. Is it really going to be that stubborn with me today? Yeah, so even if he were on the correct side of the wall, What Pants could still shoot him from the north, and Bipolar Bear would have complete exposure to the east. So sometimes, what is a little bit better to do, though albeit goofier, we'll pretend we're on a flatter surface. And that's what makes it goofy, and that's why this is not the standard thing to do, is that if you had teams moving in and you needed to buy a little time, you could put down the 2 walls and then do this thing, and then I could go to healing. And what this does is make sure that no matter what direction my 2 enemies have to shoot through, they have to shoot through at least 2 walls. There's no side peeking, there's no exposed angles, no nothing. If I wanted to block from the front only, I could do that. Or if I wanted to peek up the back lip and run out that way, you can kind of choose which way you get to escape from. Here, David, I'll let you back in. So in this scenario, Bipolar Bear and What Pants, if you guys want to get to the north, I'd appreciate that. So I want you guys to shoot just, I know you guys can shred this, but shoot just a little bit, and I'm going to show how quick it is to get out. Let's say I've just rezzed the David and it's ready to go. Go. And we're out. Just that fast. And I can choose which direction is safe and which direction is open. Whereas with the ramp, it's you can do similar things with a ramp, don't get me wrong. Like with a ramp, if David were underneath the ramp, I could very quickly like edit and spin it to the side or to this way or to something. But I find that to be more fluky and, again, only single directional versus the triangle piece. The reason this isn't the standard tactic and the reason everybody doesn't do this is the triangle piece is just not easy to place. Sometimes it likes to go into the ground. And a triangle piece in the ground is not your friend, so this tactic will not work every time, every place. Another interesting thought is that everybody likes to build one by one little bases, right? They're pretty standard, and they're not particularly hard to shoot down. So if I was up here like this, Bipolar Bear and Wet Pants, can you just shoot out the bottom of my base super quick? It probably won't take very long at all. It's a giant target, it's super easy to miss, and I'm kind of done. That'd have been a lot worse if I were up higher. There is something you can do if you know you're going to be here for a while. You can put these down, and you can edit them super quick, these shapes. And you're going to say, okay, well, you're clearly getting drunk, Drifters. What is the purpose of this? The idea behind doing this, and you can even take this and make it skinnier, and then you can build your little safety net at the top. And the idea behind this is that, from the enemy's perspective, shooting out your bottom is a lot harder. They have to be a lot more accurate, a lot more precise on these pegs. They all have the same health, but just a little bit harder to hit. You can just kind of edit your way in and out if you need to. Well, one of the problems is this takes a lot of time when you're usually building a one by one very fast. Doing this is just not time efficient whatsoever. It's also entirely possible that somebody like David, who has a grenade launcher, David, if you want to come to me, if he were to, say, place one grenade directly underneath those stairs, it would probably take out the whole structure. Whereas if I built a more traditional one by one, I don't even need to do the whole thing, like a blocker or two. David, go ahead and plant a grenade somewhere. That didn't even pan out.
They just bounced off. Wow.
Yeah. So grenades will actually bounce off of your building. They're a little harder to land. But the point being that a grenade that lands down here at this base will probably blow up this piece and maybe your stairs a little bit, but your base will still be intact. It won't fall instantly. The other thing about this that I've seen a few people recommend that I don't honestly go for is that you can build these kind of staircases in the middle and you add support structures and you edit out the centers of your support structures. Oops, if I can actually edit them properly. So that you have these, and so that they're a little bit harder to shoot, a little bit harder to take damage with. I'll go ahead and build the entire second story of my little base here as well. And the idea is that almost all of these would have the same kind of editing going on. I'll go ahead and do the front side. So that your whole base is kind of oddly skinny. And I guess this isn't maybe the worst tactic if you have a lot of spare time. You know, and the second story is where you can do all this really advanced sort of stuff that you've got going on and use your triangle pieces and then do the wall for additional support, so it's super hard to base bust. The problem is, though, when you build your base like this against, let's say, rifle fire, it's very, very sturdy. It's hard to shoot this. It takes a little bit more accuracy. But, and I'm going to go back into the little base here. Let's say you've got your base built like this. In theory, in just pure geometrical, mathematical theory or whatever, this is a fantastic base. However, if you were to run into one guy that had one grenade and threw it into the top, David, do you want to go ahead and shoot one grenade in here? One hand grenade, one grenade launcher, one anything. It's going to roll down here to this lowest point, and it's going to nuke most of your base. You have no cover from it, you have no way to hide from it, and it takes out a ton of your structures. So while having a hollow base is very efficient to prevent people from shooting you, it's not very good at dealing with incoming explosives at all because way too many pieces of wood are going to get hit. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.